What's up, everybody? It's Dave from Dave Craves Raw Food, and we are at the International School of Detoxification in Punta Gorda, Florida. I'm with my friend Daniel. We actually have known each other a while over Instagram, and we just got the chance of meeting. He's from Australia, and this guy actually cured himself from fibromyalgia, which, if you go to a doctor, it's an autoimmune disease where the body's fighting against itself, and their only answer is to put you on medication for the rest of your life. And they say that you can't ever be healed of this disease. And this guy right here, he healed it, so I want him to tell you guys how that happened and how you came to this place and how you look so healthy and radiant in front of me right now. So.
All right. Well, it started out when I was younger. I had a few digestive issues and stuff, but generally pretty well all round with my health. And I was always skinny, so I wasn't muscly, but I had that athleticism and strength. And I actually fixed the stomach issues earlier on, but I always had acne, so I took a drug called Accutane, which is like pretty much the most recommended drug.
Yeah, it's nowadays. A steroid based kind of, isn't it? I think it's a synthetic vitamin A, but I'm not sure how that interacts with the body. All I know is it's an isolated and very concentrated form of a synthetic drug that is basically on par with chemotherapy, but it's just microdose. So it's like, instead of being on chemo for 2 weeks and a lot of it's being put through the body, it's just small amounts, but you're on it for a year. So depending on genetics and internal terrain, it can break down your body pretty quick. Yeah. How long were you on it?
Just over a year.
Okay.
So it took very short amount of time for me to go from a kid who was playing basketball, very athletic, very mobile, very strong in the gym, to someone who was not really able to jump. I had inflamed kidneys, which at the time I thought it was just my back, and everyone these days that has lower back issues is very mistaken if they think it's just their spine, when the two most important organs in the body are sat right behind. So when I finally realized it wasn't just my back and that I had a systemic problem, and I realized the drug was causing it and not just like some, I don't know, virus or something.
Or genetics or something.
Yeah, all of that can be dealt with when you focus on diet. So when I came to this information, I was very unwell, but I found a man on the internet named John Rose who was talking about juice fasting. I had a few things teaching me before that, but where it all started was John Rose. Giving me the confidence to clean the body from the inside out, because eventually I learned that's where it all starts, is the bowels, and our internal system is what radiates either health or dis-ease out into the body. Yeah. Which is how I first met you.
Oh yeah, nice.
Online.
Nice.
Not physically, but I met the videos that inevitably encouraged me to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
To heal. So I spent 100 days on juice around the same time as this man doing his fast, which was cool. Very interesting time for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
But the 100 days was just scratching the surface, so people are very naive if they think that a juice fast can completely change their life. Like, I'm still cleaning to this day, and after a year of very high raw, which is what you need, a high liquid diet and a lot of raw foods, typically fruit. After a year straight, I did a water fast. I did 16 days, which might seem like a lot, but people out there easily pushing 3 weeks to 40 days, even more. It's very possible, depending on genetics at that moment of fasting, which can be, like, I've definitely healed a lot of genetic weaknesses myself to get to the point of being able to fast.
Can I ask you a question quick? So after the 100 days, you were still struggling with the fibromyalgia?
Oh.
And before the cleanse, you stopped taking the medication entirely, or were you?
Before the cleanse, yes.
So before the cleanse, you stopped taking the...
Only 3 to 6 months before, because it took me quite a while to realize. I'd say about 6 months. Okay. And afterwards, it got worse. The same way as if you're on chemo, it can get worse if you stop.
Okay.
Because the body's fighting it, but when the body gets time to actually deal with what's been put in, the purging process is always more painful.
Okay.
Detoxification is not always pleasant, but if you want to live a full life, and I'm not very old, that's something I intend to do.
Exactly.
Then you do the work. So that's what I've prided myself on, and I've done that. And
Yeah,
the fast on water was, obviously I'd done work prior with juicing and
raw
herbs,
foods,
lots of
taking
herbs,
the herbs, yep.
plenty, but it was the water fast that took it to the next level, and not everyone will have to do this. So what's affected me and how my body has presented with fibromyalgia might not be the same as someone else who has the same symptoms that needs to heal their body. They may not have to do the same thing, so they may get a remedy in 3 months. Some people get rid of arthritis in literally a few months, depending on the severity of it, depending on the genetics, depending on how stagnant their body is internally, which is the lymphatic system, which is why I'm here learning at the School of Detox. They've taught me, and they're continuing to teach a cutting edge. It's their understanding, which is, I believe, to be the truth in terms of how the body operates.
Yep.
And I see that not only based on how they teach iridology and assessing the eye to understand your weaknesses, because every time I've used their methods to help myself, it's always correlated and it's always provided results. So my eyes tell a story that back up everything I've experienced on the water fast. My parathyroid is my biggest weakness, which controls calcium, and if your calcium is weak, then your nerves won't work properly, then your bones will start to degenerate if you're not putting that back into the body. So the body dumps calcium on acids when we consume them. Like I said, Accutane is just a high acid. So there's only two sides to chemistry. Right. So my body threw calcium on the acid to buffer and help me.
So you're having trouble absorbing and utilizing the calcium because of your parathyroid. Plus, your body's taking the little calcium that you have and buffering the acidic diet
because if the blood goes acid, you die within 3 minutes.
Yep.
So the body is constantly using its own stored chemistry to keep us alive, and that's essential if we're gonna maintain.
I'm just wondering, with all this stuff going on in your body, did you have energy issues as well?
Yeah, fatigue and just cramping in my muscles, nerve spasming.
Because I can only imagine, like, if your body's doing so much work just to like buffer what you're eating and everything, that's a lot of energy. So like, how do you expect to like go outside and play and have that like youthful exuberance that we all should have, no matter how old we are?
It changed my life. I lost everything that I thought I wanted, this has taught me, and I'm grateful for having gone through this, because I mean, all I had was an acne problem, and I literally lost all mobility. I was in bed, my kidneys were burning, I could barely walk. I needed a massage 5 days a week, minimum, for 2 to 3 hours. Luckily, I had someone in my life that was doing that, and I wasn't paying anyone. Like a very, very close, like my mentor, who is very intuitive with his hands. Like I'm very fortunate. That's why I don't take this for granted. I will fix my body, and then, as I already pretty much have, the only thing I have left is like sometimes a bit of tension in my back, but I barely used to be able to sit up straight.
Right, and you think the water, the water fast is what brought you to that next healing level.
The water fast, so when I was on juice, I would say my body was very locked, and no matter what I was doing to try and remediate that, it was very solid and unmoving. But the water fast is such a powerful process because the body burns itself to regrow. So you break it down to build it back up again, and it kicks out the things that it doesn't need. So it kills the weakest cells, and that just kind of popped the cap off. And ever since then, and rebuilding. But now, even if I fast for a few hours dry, or if I literally don't eat, my body just immediately wants to detox. So I have to pull back more, which I used to have to try and get a healing crisis, is what we call it, where we give our body enough time and we give the energy required for it to start working internally to help move this stuff out and give us back the health we need. I used to have to grind just to get like some symptom of healing. Now it's just there. So water fasting is like, that's another thing. I was told certain things, I need to take this step, and if you listen to your inner guidance, you'll be sent messages on what steps to take at what time, so that you don't hurt yourself, because it's definitely possible to wind up in a worse position if you're only using the mind, or you're lost in the emotions, you're acting out of fear, you're not connected to yourself and rooted and grounded. Then you can definitely wind up worse. People try and detoxify themselves and clean out on juice fasts, and their small bowels are so full of junk that it dumps into the colon gets full, but they're not body aware or in tune enough to feel that.
True.
So it backs up, and I've heard of people have this happen multiple times. It's not common, but it happens where they have to get their colon removed because their colon was already acidic, highly impacted, backed up to the hilt, and they had no idea. Now they're flushing water through it, and they're not even thinking, okay, I'm not eliminating anything. I wonder if that's a problem, because they've just not maybe been experienced enough or done enough research, and that's where I put a lot of my time and energy into research, and I didn't let anything distract me.
Right.
And after such an extended period in time, well, really in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long, but like it's felt energetically like I've put so much into this. But
you became your own doctor. You have to. Yeah, you have to.
There's no one out there, well there are, but there's no one out there that can do it the same way you can if you really include yourself in the process and trust the knowledge and live the lifestyle. You have to really live the lifestyle. It's not a weekend thing and then go back to the same old stuff that got you where you are. So,
and it doesn't take, from what I know, it doesn't take it takes knowledge, it takes intelligence to be able to do it correctly. You can't just go in there, watch a couple videos and say ego, like your ego's like, okay, I'm just going to do 100 days. Daniel did 100 days. Now I'm going to do 100 days.
What he's saying, listen to your body.
What he's saying is you got to start getting in tune. So maybe before you try this, eat some raw food for a while, learn how to actually feel how your body is feeling and how it's working, and like, because it takes some time to get in tune, because when you're eating all that crap, you're pretty much numb. And you don't know, like you said, you won't feel it if anything's going on. You'll be like, oh, I feel the same as I did yesterday.
I was very disconnected from my emotions and my body. The pain is such a loud thing that just starts to overcome who we are. And if it wasn't for literally the people in my life, not myself, but the people that encouraged me and helped me to fulfill the 100 days, then I probably wouldn't have done 100 days. I probably wouldn't have done it right, maybe, because I didn't have that support. So always work within your own paradigm, your own limitations, and don't be motivated by guilt to achieve something. Do what you can within a set period of time, and then evaluate. And if you have to eat and break the fast, make sure it's done correctly on some hydrating fruit, nothing dry. Don't eat cooked food. And if you have to go back to cooked food after a week of breaking correctly, because it does take, depending how long a 100-day fast, you might want to spend over a week to slowly incorporate foods. But a 2-week fast, you can give yourself 2 or 3 days of adding in light fruit, and maybe you could have a small cooked meal, stir fry, something that's done very like steamed vegetables. But if you have to do that, then do it. And I was fortunate enough to stay very, very high raw for a long time. I've only really touched on cooked food very, very quickly, and then jumped back out because we need a little bit of a kick and a reminder of why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. Did you notice pain went up or anything, or were you like, actually, it was a positive thing, you needed it at the time?
Absolutely. That's another thing with the messages I got, was if I didn't eat cooked food then, I would be holding myself in limbo, and the fact that I did that actually allowed me to have an emotional release where I felt like I was allowed to be a human,
right,
and feel things. And I literally broke down in tears, because it is a very demanding thing energetically and mentally, emotionally, for you to do something so strict, and it's very
that's beautiful, man.
Very devotional to focus so much on yourself and your health, to step away from the material things that might pull us in, like the smell of certain food, or the attraction of going to a restaurant and getting a big greasy meal. But it's all rooted in the emotions, and if we do that, if we go and eat these things instead of focusing on ourselves, we're suppressing our emotions. We're not allowing ourselves to be freed up from our own vices and our own kind of limitations.
Exactly.
So it is a very deep and not always comfortable journey, but people like me and Dave are willing to not only be there for those people who are not yet there themselves, but you yourself, if you step into this role and really study the masters like John Rose, Robert Morse is one of them, that despite the lengthy videos, if you really include yourself in what he's saying, the person you are will always become more, because he's opening you up to truth. And yeah, so John Rose is more to encourage you on the philosophy side, and that's the mind, and he's more to encourage you to commit to the juice fast and bridge the gap to someone like Robert Morse, who's very spiritually motivated, which you need to tap into the spirituality to really commit to this life, because if you're not spiritually motivated, then what are you doing it for? If you don't love yourself, and if you're not grateful for this creation that we're in, like, what's the point of any of this? You may as well just go down with fibromyalgia. But I'm not willing to live the rest of my life in bed or get my